Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it. They'll definitely appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, let's give them a big hand. Great job, guys. Thank you. In just a couple of seconds, well, first of all, how many of you have ever been in that situation before where you feel criticized or judged? How many of you have been in the situation where you feel appreciated? In just seconds, we experienced a neurochemical reaction. The first example was a fear of judgment, a retreat to self-preserve and protect. It activates distrust networks and it depletes trust. It takes us into a place called fight, flight, freeze, or appease. And it used to just be fight and flight, and then they added fight, flight, freeze, and now it's fight, fight, flees, and appease. Because there's so many different ways that we can respond to that judgment. But the second example was that of affirmation. The affirmation, understanding and seeing that somebody actually values me as a person. It engages the building of trust, and it paves the way to connect, navigate, and grow together. And this is the difference between a cortisol injection and an oxytocin immersion. And you can feel it in the air when it's happening. This may seem elementary to some, but what we need to do is identify how we can properly utilize this in a structured framework in order to successfully connect in the neuroscience of conversational intelligence. The practice skill of conversational intelligence opens up awareness for knowing which kind of conversations will trigger the self-preservation area of the brain, known as the amygdala, and which conversations will activate the creative level, such as trust, integrity, empathy, human bonding, and good judgment, also known as the prefrontal cortex. As human beings, we participate in conversations on 3 different basic levels. We refer to it as the conversational intelligence matrix. Level 1 is personal power, informational, low trust. It's power neutral. When you walk into a level 1 conversation, it's getting to know one another. Where are you from? Where are you from? What do you do? What do you do? Right? We're trying to find places of commonality, a place where we can connect, because as human beings, we were created to connect. So we find that in level 1. It's very, how can I say, sometimes it can seem superficial, but it's an idea that we're trying to project we care about who you are, and we want you to know a little bit about us as well. Seeking commonality through the basic exchange of information. It's a low trust. You don't have to trust somebody to walk into a level 1 conversation. Level 2 conversation is the positional power. It's a persuasion. It's a conditional trust. It's when we advocate and inquire, and that includes leading, manipulating, and intimidating. It's a tell, sell, yell for those who understand that particular phrase. Positional influence, convincing others that your position is the correct one. Addicted to being right. Married to your perspective. Negotiating, give to get. Not really to share, but to give to get. It's a power over. An example of this would be an authoritarian and somebody who is under their authority. If a boss walks in and they say, hey, this is a great idea, we want you to do it, and there's resistance, they can either tell, sell, or yell. They're going to tell you what they want done, and if they feel the resistance, they're going to try to sell you on it so you can be on the same page with them. And if that doesn't work, they're just going to tell you, I sign your paycheck and you're going to do it. Those aren't very successful conversations. They don't really get you that far, and they're a power over conversation. Level 3 is the level conversation where you begin to share power. You co-create, and it's a position or a conversational level with high trust. It's power with. You share and discover. It's transformational. It's holding a neutral place. Listen to this. It's holding a neutral place to explore uncharted territory. It's where you ask questions for which you have no answers and you listen to connect. You know what this requires? It requires vulnerability. It requires transparency. It requires a release of control. Sometimes we struggle with that, which is why many times we never reach a level 3 conversation. The idea is to go from I to we. Whether you're in corporate America, whether you're at home with your wife and your kids, it's to going from I to we, but it requires trust. Without trust, we will never get to that most productive space of transformation. Through the neuroscience of human interaction, conversational intelligence provides the framework to build trust, from which relationships can be birthed into co-creative networks. To begin building trust, we need to engage in the self-discipline of conversation regulation. What does that mean? That means we have to change. And that's the difficult part. This is the way I am. Just deal with it. Actually, the person that has to deal with it is the person that said that, because they're never going to connect the message that they've been given to the people that are going to be able to help them make a difference. So this is a simple example of how we can intentionally downregulate cortisol triggers and upregulate oxytocin emission with 3 simple conversational essentials. So the first one is listening to connect. Going from I tell to we listen. From I tell to we listen. Some of these things are a little tough. Some of these things are not easily embraced, especially when the value that we hold is in a position of power. If we truly understand how to utilize that power and engage those that are with us, inviting them in, we're actually going to be more successful in the long run because we have a co-ownership that was co-created on a level 3 conversation. So we go from I tell to we listen. The second one is the I assume. So it goes to asking questions for which you have no answers. Asking questions for which you have no answers. This is the external action and overarching framework that will guide your CIQ practice. So instead of assuming people understand, how many times have we done that, right? Assuming people understand, of course they know what I mean. And they walk away going, what in the world did that guy mean? Instead of assuming people understand, we ask intentional questions to help connect their understanding with what we're trying to convey. A lot of times we think that the burden is on the listener. The burden really is on the speaker. And in order to be able to make sure we are making a proper connection, we need to ask questions so we know how they're translating what we're saying. And it's not about manipulating. It's about being vulnerable. It's not about asking leading questions to draw them into your answer. It's about being open to hear what they have to say. How many times are you asked a question and you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop? Right? It's that question that you're thinking to yourself, okay, I want to give them the right answer. Because we like affirmation. We like somebody to ask us a question and we give them the right answer and they say, great job. Wow, that's awesome. You got it. Oh, good, good, good. But it wasn't really the answer that was in our heart. So not only have we missed out sharing, they've missed out being able to benefit from what we can provide to them. So asking questions that you don't have answers to requires you to be open and ready to receive whatever it is they have to say. So we go from I assume to, everybody say it? We ask. The next conversational essential that I'm going to give you today is double-clicking. Double-clicking. How many of you know what happens when you double-click on a computer, on a mouse? What does it do? Nobody uses computers in here. Wow. Okay. Somebody said something? It opens something, right? And it takes you to a deeper level, right? It expands the menu. And then you go a little deeper and a little deeper and a little deeper. When you're listening to Connect and you're asking questions for which you don't have answers, double click. Because there's going to be something that they say that you don't understand. And that's good. When they reach that word or that phrase that you don't understand, you're not connecting with, stop them and say, hang on just a second. Can I double click on that word for a minute? Because if you're like me, once I hear that word that I don't understand, I don't hear the next 2 minutes of the conversation. And I want them to see that I value them. I value what you're going to say in the next 2 minutes. So let's stop here and let's ask what you meant by that. It can be as simple as a color. I can share something and I can say something about the color black. And when I say black, I'm thinking about a sheet of construction paper. I see a mental image of when I was a kid, cutting out shadow figures. It's a fun memory. It's no big deal. When I say black to someone else, they see a room of darkness that they were trapped in for years, or a heavy weight of darkness that they've felt of depression over their life. Wow, those are two big extremes, aren't they? But until you double click on that, you won't know. And if you don't know, your message will not connect with that hearer. Double clicking is an effective way to understand the person and help you re-ask powerful questions for the needed deeper connection. Inc. magazine says the conversational intelligence is one of the top 5 business trends. Microsoft has stated the conversational intelligence is spawning new innovations and influencing product development for the next decade. Judith Glaser says that the next level of greatness depends on the quality of the relationships, which depends on the quality of the conversations. Everything happens through conversation. A person's conversational intelligence is the key to life and business success. Your conversational intelligence, or your CIQ, if you will, is not about how smart you are, but it's about how open you are to learning new and effective conversational tools. Tools that will prime the brain for trust, partnership, and mutual access. Because our problem today, spending $366 billion on leadership, must not be as much leadership as it is communication in leadership. I believe if we spent more time training, raising up, and affirming good soft communication skills, we would have leaders rise up that will be able to take care of the people that they're going to be conversing with intelligently. Our companies, our families will experience a greater success than they've ever experienced before. Now, conversational intelligence isn't new, it's just newly discovered. King Solomon said, "Wise words satisfy like a good meal. The right words bring satisfaction." John 1 records the beginning of creation. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All things were created by the Word. Nothing was created without Him. I would say that God places a great value on words. He used His words to create. What are you using your words for? Be a true difference maker and manage your words wisely. Construct your conversations intelligently. You might ask, why CIQ for me? Why is it such a big deal? There's a lot of reasons, but I'm going to just share real quickly. 1 week after I had the privilege of being one of the featured presenters at the Engage 2019 conference over at the Indiana Wesleyan University. As a matter of fact, 21 weeks ago today, on May 10th of this year, I died. Medically speaking, I still had blood running through my veins due to a mechanical pump that I was attached to. But for all intents and purposes, I was dead. My chest had been split open, my heart had been disconnected, both of my radial arteries on my left arm had been removed and rerouted as multiple bypasses to alleviate a 100% blockage to my heart. My aortic valve was destroyed and provided no positive flow or proper function, only regurgitating from beat to beat. It was a miracle that I was still functioning in any capacity at all. But God is faithful. Thanks to my Heavenly Father and the prayers and support of my family and friends, and the skill of an excellent medical staff, I came out of surgery the host to a new medical or mechanical valve. It's like top of the line stuff here, guys. You're looking at technology, okay? And I woke up bearing a striking resemblance to Tony Stark. I told his office I can't do doubles for him on his movies, but you know how that goes. After 6 days in the hospital, I was released to go home. And then 6 days after returning home on May 22nd, I woke up with a feeling I had never had before. Everything was gray, and I'm not one who's prone to depression, so I began to ask my Heavenly Father what this all meant. At that moment, He showed me a line. And it was that line that represented my life. You know that line between the start and stop dates on headstones? And God then revealed to me that this would have been the day that my life would have ended. May 22nd, 2019. And not coincidentally, this day was 2 days before the original surgery scheduled date of May 24th that was miraculously moved up 2 weeks due to double booking that they didn't realize they had done. All of a sudden, as I'm looking at this line, a transparent golden cube appeared, ominously rotating just past the stopping point of the line. And I asked what this was, and he shared with me that he had granted me an additional block of time. I immediately asked if I was supposed to pick up my typical pace. You know, we've talked about the type A personalities. The joke when I was through my life is that I was AAA. That was my nickname. You know, AAA. Hey, there's AAA there. Was I supposed to pick up that pace? Was I supposed to jump back in and make as much difference as possible, as quickly as possible? And God responded to me, you can do that. But you need to understand that if you do, this block of time will be expended much quicker. It will only last so long. Because there's only so much energy that I've extended to you in this block of time. Or, he says, you can be wise about how to spend it, and you can have a greater impact over a longer period of time and be able to be there for your family as well. So now I have this continuous image of a gold cube ominously rotating just past the stopping point of my life. And it's the filter that I use to determine what I'm to expend that block of time on. What am I to embrace? What am I to pass along? And what am I to release? Why do I have a focus on conversational intelligence? Because I believe in my message. And I want to best ensure that I'm able to connect to those to whom I've been entrusted the opportunity to share life with and And many of you are a part of that circle. And I also have a very important audience. My wife, my children, my grandchildren, my family and friends, and every person that God places before me as we share a cup of coffee across the table. So whether working with CEOs of a corporation, a small business owner, an individual who wants to go to the next level in their influence, or engaging with family and friends, you have a message. And conversational intelligence will help you ensure a productive connection through which transformation and exchange can be realized. Conversational intelligence is not a solution. It is the framework through which solutions are born. I want to thank you all for your time and your patience with me. And I haven't come to teach anybody anything about their job or about their life. Just to give you a tool to do what you already do better. Whatever it is, conversational intelligence will help you do it to a greater level. Now, if you're interested in receiving a PDF copy, we thought about making all handouts, but this is like a nonprofit thing, right? And we all got in here for free. Yeah, so we decided to go the better route. I'll send you a digital copy, okay? So if you want to just text your name and email address to my phone number, I do not use it to solicit. I am not here to gain 1,000 clients. I am here to impart to you something that I believe is of value. And that's one thing that I hope and I pray that I've conveyed to every person that I've had coffee with. When I make that appointment on my schedule, and when I sit down with you for coffee or over the phone, the last thing that enters my mind is, I wonder if this will be a client someday. My whole motivation is I want to get to know you because I know you'll add value to me, and I pray that something I have may be able to add value to you. I had coffee with a young up-and-coming popular here in Fort Wayne, pretty aggressive in his market, and he sat down and he talked to me for a while, and it was a little kind of scripted, and I'm just kind of like, all right, let's just kind of relax here, just going to kind of get to know each other. And so about halfway through the conversation, he says, so basically, when's the shoe going to drop? I said, shoe? Which shoe? And he said, what's the ask? What ask? He said, I'm just waiting for you to tell me what it is that you're wanting from me. And I chuckled. I said, oh, I get it. Nothing. And it rocked his world. He said, you don't want anything from me? I just want to get to know you. Conversation totally changed. Everything relaxed. It wasn't about salesy. It was about transformation. It was about getting to know one another and adding value to each other's lives. And I pray that something that I've said today, something that I've done, some crazy PowerPoint that I've thrown up there, has somehow touched you. And I think that's pretty much it for me. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
I'm curious about being an individual practitioner in an organization and wanting to encourage leaders above me to think with more conversational intelligence, to experience trusting me.
Great question. Yeah, a very good question that I hear a lot. Leading from the bottom is basically what that is. And how many of us understand that? Don't raise your hand if your boss is here. But, okay. But trying to lead from the bottom can be difficult. But it's like anything else, really. I would encourage you, because for the company culture to drastically change quicker, it has to come from the top, right? Because there has to be a buy-in. But the company culture can start to change from the bottom. And the idea is, if you are under that kind of authority, they're not buying into it. Start practicing conversational intelligence yourself. Practice it with them. Practice it with your coworkers. Practice it with your clients. And once they start seeing that culture shift changing under them, they're going to start coming to you and say, what exactly are you doing? I notice there's a difference. That's what's going to breed that curiosity, and then they're going to ask for more information. Once they start asking, if you start telling, they're going to shut you down because you're the underling, right? You don't know anything. I'm the boss for a reason. And I don't mean that negatively, I just mean that realistically. They have a lot going on, and the last thing they need is just somebody else telling them what to do. So if you share it with them, if you show it with them to them through example, they're going to end up asking you, and then don't give it all to them, right? Come on, keep it curious. And then start infusing one little bit at a time. And before you know it, I believe that they'll be either wanting to know more about conversational intelligence, or they will actually be sitting you down and find out what they can do to help change the culture that you're affecting. Does that help?
So
yeah.
If I'm hearing you correctly, I wrote down a lot of things about what you said today, but I underlined the bit where you were saying I to we.
Yeah.
And I underlined listen, ask, and discover.
Yep.
And so if I'm doing those things,
yep.
those are the things to kind of
yes, sir.
concentrate on as I'm trying to encourage that in someone who's leading me.
Absolutely.
Choosing to listen to them, choosing to ask that question, choosing to discover.
And those, yes, absolutely. And those things can actually be used as examples as well. When they start wondering how this works, you can ask them, how does it make you feel when I ask you a question that I don't have an answer to and I need your input? Oh, it makes me feel good, makes me feel valuable. That's how every one of your employees would like to feel when you ask them a question. They would like to feel valuable. They would like to feel that you're not just meeting with them to tell them something again, that it's not death by meeting, right? How many of you death by meeting, right? Let's have another meeting this week, death by meeting. But it's actually a time of synergy and co-creation. Changes the entire culture of what you're doing. Yes, anybody else? Great question. Thank you. Yeah, Jared.
Two-part question. Do you think some of the lack of communication or conversational intelligence is due to the way we communicate now? And then also, do you think that conversational intelligence can be as effective over email or digital communication as it can in person?
Okay, if anybody didn't hear that question, has conversation changed because of the way we converse now? And can you exercise conversational intelligence through the social media environment that we're in? Yes and yes. Yes, things have changed as far as the way we communicate. We have to be very intentional how we communicate. Emojis can only say so much. You know, I mean, they're great. I love them. I use them all the time. And I know, don't tell Elizabeth McDonald there. She would not be happy with me about that. But I use the emoji thing, right? But there's times I use emojis and words because I want to make sure that it didn't send them the wrong signal. So yes, we have to be intentional about that, especially in the environment that we're in. Can you do CIQ through digital or type, if you will? Absolutely. You're just putting into words, and you're going to have to use more than abbreviations and emojis to actually convey your message. And then if they send something that you don't understand, double click on that. Could you expound on that word that you just said? So yes and yes. Does that make sense? Okay. One more question, and then we're going to have to wrap it up. Yes, Barry.
Rob, I like the earlier question about the listen, ask, discover. It really connects well. When you think about keeping conversation as really being a good listener, seek to understand, not to be understood.
Yes.
And I'm curious, what are some ideas or some good questions that move us from ask to discover? Like when we want to stop and double click, asking is can you tell me more? Well, what are some good discovery questions on how to discover more and when I want to double click on something? How's that transition affect?
A lot of questions we've heard are about feeling, and that's not bad. Those are good questions. You know, how does that make you feel? What are your next steps? How would you like to proceed? In regards to they're trying to share something with you, and you want to ask them or double click on a question, say, could you expound on that for me? What exactly does that look like to you? So you're using words like look and ask and see and feel, and it gets them into their neural path of experience. So they're able to access their limbic brain of experience, which actually starts then birthing out this information that helps you connect with them on more of a specific level. You're understanding more about what they're saying and how they're saying it, how it's birthed. So really being able to reframe those questions. Sometimes you might have to reframe a question 3 times, and that's okay. All that means to them is that they care enough about me to ask until they actually